for Michigan State Representative for the new 46th District, Maurice Imhoff. Hi, Maurice.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Never expected to be on here for this after quite some time.
Yes, Maurice has been on the show several times for various other things like you've been involved with, but
Yep.
Running for office, and I never, actually, I guess I can't say I never thought you would. I thought maybe someday you would, but why did you decide that you wanted to run for State House?
Yeah. Well, I think we need fresh energy, and that's one of the biggest things that inspired me to be able to run. In 2020, we saw young people all across the country stand up, get their voices heard, and run for office. And now in make their voices heard on the streets. And now in 2022, we're seeing it once again after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Young people all across the country standing up, knocking doors, making sure their voices are heard, and some, including like myself, running for office to be able to advocate. We know that there are decisions being made for my generation and generations to come, and we should be a part of those conversations.
And what is your generation? Tell us, because I think if you were to be elected, it'd be a couple of firsts, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. So I am 20, going on 21 here in a couple weeks, and I will be the youngest state rep elected in Michigan history. I'm the youngest currently running in Michigan's history, and if elected, it'll be the youngest ever elected.
Youngest ever
elected. Yep, into the Michigan State House. And I also would be the first African American ever in Michigan history elected from Jackson County, which is neat if you know I'm a history person. We look at Jackson's anti-slavery history. Right here in 1854, they held the convention of the Republican Party at the time. They held that convention, and it was an anti-slavery movement. National, or all across the country, we had people come here to Jackson to say slavery is wrong. And now to potentially send a person of color to the State House from Jackson, it's pretty significant, I think.
And you can run as 18-year-old. 18-year-old is the minimum age to run and serve in that office.
I'm not sure as far as that goes. I know you have to be 21 to serve in the office.
21 to serve
to
in
serve.
the office.
21. You have to be 21 to serve.
To
so I'm just hitting it. Yeah.
You're just going to make it. You have to have your birthday before you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So my birthday's on the 30th, and then the election's on the 8th of November.
So what are the issues that you're running on? What are the things that are important to you that are part of your campaign?
Yeah. So my biggest issues are infrastructure, education, and healthcare. We'll start with infrastructure. Our state's infrastructure is crumbling. We see that all across. When we look at our roads, look at our water. We have pieces in Detroit, going over Detroit. We have pieces of bridges that are falling into the Detroit River. And that's sad. I think we've grown far beyond that. We're better. We're Michigan. We need to make sure we're doing the proper investments to not have that happen. We go to Jackson. We have 11,000 lead service lines here in our city. And it's nice to be able to fund new parks, fund new trails and such. But when our children are being poisoned, potentially by the lead in our service lines, that's unacceptable. We have to make sure that we're funding and replacing those. There's $6 billion surplus in the state budget this year. We have to make sure that money is going towards infrastructure. This is one-time spending money, all the COVID money and such. This is one-time money. We need to spend a lot of it on our infrastructure. Other two pieces are healthcare. I have a family member that is very close to me who is disabled. Seeing that and the impacts of that is something that has greatly inspired me to make sure that our healthcare system is improving. And lastly is education. Being a recent graduate myself, I see where the education system can improve. It's scary that we have people who want to take funding away from schools, but are continuing to tax senior pensions right now. We have to make sure that we're funding our schools and educating our students.
So the current problem that we're hearing in the state is a shortage of teachers. What would you do? What are the things that could be done in the legislature to address that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's increasing the budget for our schools. I've talked to some of our superintendents, school board presidents in the area, and they've talked about the turnover. It's hard to get teachers, and they're having a turnover of teachers once they're getting them in, if they can get them in, largely because of the low-paying wages that they're offering right now, and they also don't have a lot of benefits. And benefits is a really important thing I know for a lot of our staff, and we need to make sure that we're funding them. I've talked to people on doors, like direct corrections officers that are part of the MDOC. They don't have pensions right now. We need to make sure that we're properly funding these things.
One of the issues that we've heard in campaigns across the board the violence, gun violence in particular.
Yeah.
What steps, if any, can be done to
Yeah.
curb gun violence
Yeah.
in the district and in the state?
Right. So gun violence is a major, major issue here in Jackson. We know that for a fact. The other part of my district is Chelsea. It goes from Jackson to Chelsea, and gun violence is unheard of in Chelsea. A drive-by shooting where no one gets killed would be the biggest story of the year in Chelsea. Here in Jackson, where we have drive-by shootings and people are getting killed, it's become another weekend. I mean, it's become common. I mean, even during the Civil War muster I hosted a couple months ago now, we had shootings during that, and people get killed during, nearby during the night. And it's sad that we've came to this point where it's become so regular. I think we need to make sure that we're funding our police officers and giving them the resources that they need to be able to patrol our streets. It's really sad that we've come very normalized to the amount of violence that we're facing in our community with gun violence.
You mentioned the Civil War. Muster, tell us about some of the activities you've
Sure.
been involved in.
Yeah, so I've greatly enjoyed getting involved in the community over the past years. I originally, most people don't know, but I originally lived in Lansing before. I'm low income. I just dress nice. I lived in the south side of Lansing before, which was very diverse and low income. I moved to Jackson and went to Northwest Middle School, where I was maybe one of 5 African American kids at the time there. And that was very tough. It was tough going into an environment like that. But what I found was that the community was very passionate, very loving and opening and willing to take me in and make sure they work with me. Through that, I've been able to get involved in several nonprofits, including founding my own. In 2020, during the pandemic, I founded the Jackson County Michigan Historical Society. History is my main thing. I'm also on the board of the Michigan Theater of Jackson, on the board of the Salvation Army, a part of the Back to School Bash Committee, and hosted and brought back as president the Jackson Civil War muster at Cascades, which was a lot of work, but I didn't imagine I'd be running for office in the same year originally when looking at bringing that back.
Yeah, that's lots going on, and for someone that's just 20, I know your Civil War history started as a student when you were at Kidder Middle School.
Absolutely. Yep, I started doing the living history there. With the African American Black History group that I was a part of, and suited up in the uniforms, went around to all different parts of the state, and including very, very deep white communities that didn't have any minorities at all living in them, and talking about the roles that African Americans played during the Civil War. Oftentimes, African Americans are viewed as the victims during the war, and not viewed as the victors, and that's the story we wanted to tell. Was that we had over 160,000 African Americans stand up and fight for the freedom of others. We need to make sure that story is being told.
So in your research, you found some things that no one knew about before you were actually discovered them about Civil War, about African Americans from Jackson County in the Civil War.
Yep, so we look at some of the history that they had, places that they went. In many cases, I mean, these guys had some really great victories. I often talk about, some of the tough stories. We had 3 lynchings here in Michigan that are African American, one of which was a veteran of this unit. He was a veteran who fought in the Civil War and was lynched just not too far from here in Mason. We need to make sure those stories are being told and learning from them. We know if we do not learn from our past, then we are doomed to repeat it.
We have Consumers Energy based in your district. What do you support in terms of policies in the protection of Michigan's environment, our water, our air, and the energy policies of the utility, which include electric powered vehicles, no more coal generation, renewable energy?
Well, I can tell you one of the biggest things is that, especially for my generation and coming, that climate change is one of the biggest issues that we are facing in our future, and we know it's real. It's something that we're facing. Last year, I had the opportunity and got a full scholarship to attend a symposium at Harvard University to study public health and climate change. So I was able to learn from the top people in the country how serious this issue is and how we can work to face that. And part of that is making sure we have renewable energy. I know that's something consumers is working on a lot, and being able to see how they can develop, how they can work with the community to make sure that they're moving towards something more eco-friendly. In Jackson, I know it's a huge issue that we have to make sure that we're being on top of, making sure that we don't have something that is it's damaging as climate change overtake us at one point in time, and we have to be proactive in that. You mentioned the electric vehicles. That's something from the people at Harvard that I've talked to that's very undecided yet. If we all shift to electric vehicles at once, they don't know if the grid will be able to handle that. So it's how can we find a happy medium and happy balance that I think it's going to work out for a long period of time.
You mentioned the district. It's newly drawn. In
Right.
fact, all the House and Senate candidates running in Jackson County are representing new districts. In fact, half of the candidates don't even live in Jackson County that will be representing. In the 46, both candidates do live in Jackson. Tell us about the district, the makeup.
Yeah, so the district runs from pretty much Northwest High School to Chelsea High School. So if we go the city of Jackson, Blackman Township part of it, and then part of Summit, then goes east to Leone Township through Sylvan, and ends at the city of Chelsea. And it's one of the most 50-50 seats in the entire state. And why that's good is it gets more people involved. It gets more people paying attention to the race, learning about different policies and what we're facing in this election. It gets a lot of people involved. I myself am hoping to bring some diversity into our state house and fresh energy. I think that's a big piece that we need. I think we need fresh energy. We need people of all different makes and backgrounds. For example, like I said, I'm low income, and being able to speak for my community and what we face, we know that 50% of people here in Jackson live under the federal poverty line, and we need to be represented in our state house and be able to talk about that. That will be able to provide quality legislation, I believe, by being able to have everyone be a part of the conversation. So I think that's a really important piece that we have to look at in this election.
All right, and you have a website?
I have a website. It's mauriceimhoff.org, and very happy to be involved.
Great to have you here. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Candidate for the new 46th District Michigan State House, Maurice Imhoff. Up next on